My name is Harper Bailey, and I'm 28 years old. 10 years ago, I was called the ugly duckling at my high school graduation. My beauty-obsessed family disowned me that same night because I refused to change my appearance. Last week, I received an invitation to my 10-year reunion, followed by an unexpected email from my estranged family. They have no idea how much the tables have turned. Before I tell you what happened at that reunion, let me know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories about rising above adversity. I grew up in Wellesley, an affluent suburb just outside of Boston. Our house was a sprawling colonial with perfectly manicured lawns and a 3-car garage filled with luxury vehicles. From the outside, the Bailey family appeared perfect. But inside those pristine walls, appearance wasn't just important, it was everything. My mother, Kimberly Bailey, was a former Massachusetts beauty pageant runner-up who never quite got over losing the crown. She maintained a rigorous beauty regimen well into her 40s, waking at 5 a.m. for her maintenance routine before anyone else was awake. Her bathroom cabinet looked like a Sephora stockroom organized by product type, purpose, and season. She scheduled weekly salon appointments like they were critical business meetings, and heaven help anyone who caused her to miss her standing Saturday morning blowout. My father, Richard Bailey, was a high-powered corporate attorney whose client list included celebrities and CEOs. He wasn't as obviously obsessed with appearance as my mother, but he enforced the family image with an iron fist. Baileys present themselves with excellence. He would remind us before any public outing. His cologne collection cost more than most people's monthly rent, and he never left the house without a perfectly tailored suit, regardless of the occasion. Then there was my older sister, Madison. 3 years my senior and blessed with our mother's high cheekbones and our father's striking blue eyes, Madison was the golden child. Cheerleading captain, homecoming queen, prom queen, she collected titles and trophies for her beauty the way some kids collected baseball cards. Her bedroom walls were covered with pageant sashes and modeling competition certificates rather than band posters or academic awards. And then there was me. From an early age, it was clear I hadn't won the genetic lottery, at least not in the ways my family valued. While Madison was signing with a teen modeling agency at 14, I was battling severe cystic acne that seemed resistant to every dermatologist's treatment. While she was shopping for homecoming dresses, I was getting fitted for my 3rd set of braces. While she maintained a perfect size 2 figure, I struggled with my weight, fluctuating between chubby and pleasantly plump, according to my mother's euphemisms. Harper, darling, have you been using that special face wash I bought you? My mother would ask at breakfast, not even trying to hide her disappointment as she examined my latest breakout. You know, if you'd just cut out dairy like I suggested, your skin would clear right up. The suggestions were endless: special diets, expensive creams, painful facials where estheticians would tisk-tisk over my problematic skin. By 13, I was on a strict beauty regimen that would have been excessive for a Hollywood actress. By 15, my mother had started casually leaving brochures for cosmetic procedures on my bed. The comparisons were relentless. Not just to Madison, but to my cousin Tiffany, to girls at school, to younger versions of my mother. Family gatherings were torture sessions disguised as helpful advice circles. You have so much potential, Harper, my aunt would say, pinching my cheeks until they were red. You just need to put in the effort. Look at your sister. She's up at dawn doing her yoga and skin routine. What no one seemed to notice or care about was that while Madison was winning beauty contests, I was acing every class. While she was dating the football captain, I was building my first computer program. My bedroom wasn't decorated with tiaras, but with science fair medals and academic certificates. Only my science teacher, Mr. Wilson, seemed to see me, really see me, beyond my appearance. During my sophomore year, he pulled me aside after I aced another exam. Harper, you have an extraordinary mind, he said, his eyes serious behind wire-rimmed glasses. Have you considered a future in computer science? You have a natural aptitude that's quite remarkable. Those words were a lifeline. In a household where my intelligence was treated as a consolation prize for my lack of beauty, Mr. Wilson's recognition of my actual strengths gave me something to hold on to. I threw myself into coding with the same determination my sister applied to maintaining her highlights. I taught myself JavaScript, then Python, then C++. I created a little corner of the world where appearances didn't matter, where my acne and braces and awkward body were irrelevant. What mattered was my mind, my creativity, my problem-solving abilities. My parents viewed my computer interest as a peculiar hobby at best. It's making her more antisocial, I overheard my mother telling my father one night. And the blue light from the screen isn't doing her complexion any favors. My 16th birthday marked a turning point. Instead of the laptop upgrade I'd been hinting at for months, my parents presented me with an envelope. Inside was a gift certificate for a consultation with a plastic surgeon. Surprise, my mother exclaimed, her smile wide and expectant. Dr. Friedman is the best in Boston. He did Aunt Carol's eyes, and no one could even tell she had work done. Madison smirked from across the table. You're going to look so much better, Harper. Maybe you'll even get asked to prom next year. I stared at the certificate, the cursive lettering blurring as tears filled my eyes. I don't want surgery, I said quietly. My father cleared his throat. Harper, your mother, and I have given this a lot of thought. This is an investment in your future. First impressions matter in this world, especially for young women. But I'm only 16, I protested, my voice cracking. Exactly, my mother nodded eagerly. Perfect timing for you to start senior year with a fresh look. Dr. Friedman can fix that nose and maybe do something about your chin. Nothing dramatic, just enhancements. I excused myself to the bathroom where I locked the door and cried silently. The gift certificate crumpled in my fist. That night, I started coding a blog where I could express myself anonymously, where I could exist without being reminded of all the ways I failed to meet the Bailey beauty standard. What I didn't know then was that this blog would eventually become my ticket to freedom. But first, I had to survive senior year in the Bailey household. Senior year arrived with a flurry of college applications and increasing pressure. While my classmates stressed about their personal essays, I was juggling two distinct lives, the perfect Bailey daughter my parents demanded and the brilliant coder I was becoming in secret. My focus remained laser-sharp on academics. MIT had become my dream school, not just for its prestigious computer science program, but for the distance it would put between me and my family's suffocating expectations. Every A on my transcript was another step toward Cambridge and away from Wellesley. Meanwhile, my battle with cystic acne reached new heights. Despite spending thousands on dermatologist appointments, prescription medications, and high-end skincare, my skin refused to cooperate. Each new breakout was treated like a family emergency. Harper, did you touch your face again? You know that spreads bacteria, my mother would scold. Examining my skin under the harsh bathroom lights. We have the Reynolds Charity Gala this weekend. What am I supposed to tell people? My sister Madison's friends had appointed themselves my unofficial tormentors at school. Led by Brooke Henderson, their favorite game was Harper Makeover, where they'd loudly discuss what procedures I needed while standing near my locker. Definitely a nose job first, Brooke would announce, loud enough for nearby students to hear. But honestly, it might be easier to just start from scratch. Their laughter would echo down the hallway as I hunched deeper into my oversized sweater, trying to become invisible. My refuge became the computer lab during lunch periods. While others socialized in the cafeteria, I worked on my coding projects and maintained my anonymous blog, CodeGirlX. What had started as a digital diary had evolved into a respected resource for young coders. I posted tutorials, shared projects, and connected with a community that had no idea what I looked like. and didn't care. When college acceptance letters began arriving in spring, I kept my growing pile of yes envelopes secret. Harvard, Stanford, Caltech, and finally, MIT with a partial scholarship. I couldn't contain my excitement when that particular letter arrived, letting out a small squeal in the privacy of my bedroom. "What are you so happy about?" Madison appeared in my doorway, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. "Nothing," I said quickly, tucking the MIT letter under my pillow. "Whatever. Mom wants to talk to you about college applications. She's been calling Aunt Beth about getting you an interview at Vassar." I froze. "But I've already been accepted to what?" "Community college." Madison laughed. "Mom's been working on this for months. Aunt Beth is an alumni donor. They're expecting you to follow family tradition. All Bailey women go to Vassar." That evening, I tried to share my MIT acceptance during dinner. "I have some good news," I began cautiously. "I got accepted to MIT with a scholarship." The table fell silent. My father set down his fork, and my mother's smile became fixed. "MIT? That engineering school." My mother's voice was tight. "Harper, we've discussed this. Vassar has an excellent liberal arts program, and you'd be following in my footsteps. But I want to study computer science, not liberal arts." My father cleared his throat. "Computer science isn't a suitable career for a young woman from your background. It's all antisocial men in basements. No Bailey is going to become some sort of tech hermit. Besides," my mother added, "Vassar girls have a certain polish. MIT is so unfeminine." The argument escalated until I retreated to my room in tears, the MIT acceptance letter clutched to my chest. That night, I made my decision. I would attend MIT, with or without my parents' blessing or financial support. As graduation approached, a new battlefield emerged, what I would wear to the ceremony. Shopping for my graduation dress became an exercise in psychological warfare. My mother dragged me to upscale boutiques, selecting dresses that were either too tight, too revealing, or completely impractical for sitting through a 3-hour ceremony. "This one highlights your waist," she insisted, holding up a form-fitting satin number that made me look like I was being vacuum sealed. "We need to accentuate your few good features." After 5 miserable shopping trips, she finally selected a pale pink dress with an uncomfortable corset back that left me gasping for breath. The moment we returned home, I began planning modifications, subtle alterations to make the dress wearable without my mother noticing until it was too late. Late at night, I carefully let out seams and loosened the corset ties, replacing them with hidden elastic panels that allowed me to breathe. I adjusted the neckline to be less revealing and added small pockets, a practical addition my mother would have vetoed as bulky. 2 days before graduation, I tried on the modified dress. It looked nearly identical to the original design, but felt entirely different. Comfortable, practical, mine. For once, I didn't hate my reflection. My small victory was short-lived. The morning of graduation arrived with a fresh crisis. My mother entered my room at 6 a.m., arms laden with makeup kits, hot rollers, and her emergency sewing kit. "We need at least 3 hours to get you ready," she announced, plugging in a curling iron. "I've booked Margot to do your makeup. She's a miracle worker." I took a deep breath. "Mom, I'm not wearing a full face of makeup to graduation." She froze, the curling iron dangling from her hand. "Don't be ridiculous." "Of course you are." "No, I'm not. It's June in Massachusetts. It'll be 90 degrees in those polyester gowns. Everything will melt off anyway. That's why we use setting spray, Harper. Don't be difficult. I'm wearing light makeup that I'll apply myself. And I'm wearing my hair down, not in an updo." My mother's face flushed with anger. "Absolutely not. You need all the help you can get. The Wilsons will be taking photos, the Hendersons, the Clarks, everyone who matters will be there." "It's my graduation," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "And for once, I'm going to be comfortable." The fight that ensued was epic, with my mother cycling through tears, threats, and finally, icy silence. When I walked downstairs 2 hours later in my modified dress, my hair simply blow-dried straight and minimal makeup, she looked at me like I'd shown up in pajamas. "You're embarrassing this family intentionally," she hissed as we prepared to leave. "I hope you're proud of yourself." I wasn't proud. Not yet. But for the first time, I wasn't ashamed either. That would come later in ways I couldn't have imagined. June 7th dawned bright and humid, the kind of New England summer day where the air feels like a wet blanket. By the time we arrived at Wellesley High's football field, where rows of white folding chairs faced a flower-bedecked stage, my carefully straightened hair was already starting to frizz in the humidity. My father parked his Audi in the VIP section, a perk of his generous donations to the school's endowment fund. The Bailey family exited the vehicle like celebrities arriving at a premiere. My mother in a couture dress that cost more than some people's monthly mortgage, Madison in a designer sundress that somehow didn't wrinkle or show sweat, and my father in a lightweight summer suit that screamed old money. And then there was me, trailing behind them in my modified pink dress, already feeling the scrutiny of other families as they whispered and pointed. The valedictorian with the unfortunate face. The smart Bailey girl who didn't inherit the good genes. "We'll see you after the ceremony," my mother said stiffly as I prepared to join the other graduates. "Try not to slouch during your walk across the stage." I took my assigned seat in the front row with the other honor students, painfully aware of the empty buffer space my classmates naturally created around me. Despite maintaining a 4.0 GPA and being named valedictorian, I remained a social pariah, too awkward, too focused on academics, too physically unappealing to be included. Principal Whitman began the ceremony with his standard platitudes about bright futures and new beginnings. I half listened, mentally rehearsing my valedictorian speech while scanning the crowd for Mr. Wilson, the only teacher who had truly supported me. I spotted him near the back, giving me a subtle thumbs up when our eyes met. When my name was called to deliver the valedictorian address, the applause was perfunctory at best. I approached the podium, adjusted the microphone with trembling hands, and began the speech I'd worked on for weeks, a thoughtful reflection on looking beyond superficial measures of success. "True value isn't found in appearances or popularity," I said, my voice gaining strength as I continued. "It's found in the unique contributions each of us brings to the world." From the third row, I heard a distinct snicker, followed by a whispered comment that rippled through nearby graduates. Brooke Henderson's voice carried clearly. "Is she seriously lecturing us about appearances? Someone get her a mirror." More laughter followed, and my cheeks burned. I stumbled over my next few sentences, but forced myself to continue, even as I noticed my mother's pinched expression of disappointment from the family section. After the ceremony, as graduates hugged and families took photos, I stood awkwardly by the stage, clutching my diploma. The professional photographer approached, looking slightly uncomfortable. "Bailey family photo," he asked, checking his list. "I've already taken your sister's individual portraits." Your mother pre-booked a family session. I followed him to where my family waited under a flowering dogwood tree. Madison was already posing, my mother adjusting her hair and suggesting angles to the photographer. "There you are," my father said without enthusiasm. "Let's get this done quickly. We have guests arriving at the house soon." The photo session was excruciating. The photographer kept suggesting different poses and angles, clearly struggling to find a flattering way to capture me. "Maybe tilt your chin down a bit more," he suggested kindly. "And let's have you stand slightly behind your sister." "For heaven's sake, just Photoshop it later," my mother muttered, loud enough for me to hear. By the time we arrived at our home for the graduation party, caterers were setting up an elaborate spread in our backyard. Crystal champagne flutes sparkled on white-clothed tables, and arrangements of pale pink peonies and white roses decorated every surface. The Bailey graduation celebration was the social event of the season, and my mother had spared no expense, not for me, but for the impression it would make. I changed into the party dress my mother had selected, another uncomfortable choice with too tight seams and an unflattering neckline. As guests began to arrive, I stood dutifully by the entrance, accepting congratulations with a practiced smile while my parents showcased Madison to their friends. Harper got into MIT, I overheard my father telling his law partner, making it sound like a curious footnote rather than an achievement. Full ride, he added, though my scholarship only covered tuition. Not living expenses, a detail I hadn't corrected since I still hadn't told them I'd accepted. As the party progressed, I retreated to a quiet corner of the patio, nursing a glass of sparkling water. From my vantage point, I could see Madison holding court near the pool, surrounded by her friends and my parents' business associates. She was showing something on her phone that was causing uproarious laughter. Curious and concerned, I edged closer, staying behind a large potted palm. With growing horror, I realized she was showing my graduation photos, unflattering shots taken during my walk across the stage and speech. Look at this one, she giggled, swiping to another image. The photographer sent Mom the raw files. He said even he couldn't make her look good. Brooke Henderson leaned in, her perfect teeth flashing in a predatory smile. Oh my God. Can you send me these? My cousin goes to Pendleton Prep, and their valedictorian is gorgeous. The contrast would be hilarious. Already did, Madison smirked. I made a whole album called Ugliest Graduate. It's going viral in the Wellesley Prep group chat. The world seemed to tilt sideways. I backed away, bumping into a waiter who spilled champagne down my dress. The cool liquid seeped through the fabric, but I barely noticed. I rushed to the downstairs bathroom, locked the door, and pulled out my phone with shaking hands. Sure enough, there it was, a shared album of my graduation photos, each one more unflattering than the last, with cruel comments accumulating by the second. In some, my double chin was emphasized. In others, my acne was the focus. My hunched posture, my frizzy hair, my nervous smile, all were being dissected and mocked by not just students, but their parents as well. I sank to the floor, my back against the cool bathroom tiles, and tried to muffle my sobs with a hand towel. A knock at the door startled me. Harper? Are you in there? My mother's sharp voice cut through my tears. People are asking where you are. It's rude to disappear from your own graduation party. I opened the door, my makeup streaked and eyes puffy. Did you see what Madison is doing? Did you see the photos she's sharing? My mother's expression shifted from annoyance to discomfort. Oh, that. Yes, well, they're not the most flattering pictures, but that's hardly Madison's fault. She called it Ugliest Graduate, I whispered. Your friends are laughing at them. Everyone is sharing them. Don't be so sensitive, Harper. If you'd let Margot do your makeup and worn your hair the way I suggested, this wouldn't be happening. She handed me a compact. Fix your face and come back out. The Goldmans want to congratulate you, and Mr. Richards from your father's firm is asking about your MIT acceptance. I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. You're not going to say anything to Madison? You're not going to make her take them down. My mother sighed, checking her watch. What's done is done. Now, please be ready in 5 minutes. And put some powder on that redness. She left me standing there, clutching her compact, my world collapsing around me. Through the bathroom window, I could see more guests arriving. My father's business associates, local politicians, family friends who had known me my entire life. All of them would have seen those photos by now. All of them would be judging, pitying, or mocking me. I slipped out through the kitchen entrance, ignored by the busy catering staff, and made my way to the garden shed behind our property. There, surrounded by gardening tools and the scent of fertilizer, I curled up on a burlap sack and allowed myself to break down completely. The sobs that tore from my throat didn't sound human. They were the accumulated pain of years of degradation and disappointment. As twilight fell and the party continued without me, I made a decision. I couldn't live like this anymore. Something had to change, even if it meant losing everything I'd ever known. The morning after graduation dawned with an eerie calm. I had eventually returned to the house long after the party ended, slipping in through the back door and avoiding any potential confrontation. My room, with its familiar pale blue walls and neatly organized bookshelf, felt like a stranger's space, a relic from a life I could no longer inhabit. At precisely 10 a.m., my father's voice echoed up the stairs. Family meeting in my study. Immediately. The Bailey family meeting was an institution reserved for major announcements or serious infractions. Seated in the leather wingback chairs that faced my father's imposing mahogany desk, we looked like participants in a corporate board meeting rather than a family discussion. My father remained standing, his hands clasped behind his back as he paced the Persian rug. My mother sat rigid in her chair, her expression unreadable. Madison examined her manicure, clearly bored with the proceedings. Yesterday was unacceptable, my father began, his lawyer voice in full effect. Harper, your disappearance from your own graduation party was noticed by everyone. The Goldmans were offended, and Senator Wilson's wife specifically asked to speak with you about her daughter's coding camp. I stared at the floor, unable to believe this was his concern after what had happened. Furthermore, he continued, your appearance and presentation throughout the day reflected poorly on this family. The Baileys have standards, Harper. Standards and expectations that you consistently fail to meet. My mother nodded in solemn agreement. We've done everything we could, Richard. The dermatologists, the dietitians, the style consultants. Harper simply refuses to put in the effort. That's not fair, I said quietly. I've tried everything you've asked. My skin condition is medical, not from lack of effort. And yesterday, Madison publicly humiliated me by, don't blame your sister for your shortcomings, my father cut me off. Madison has always understood what it means to be a Bailey. She represents this family with grace and beauty. Madison smirked at me from across the room. Which brings us to the matter at hand, my father continued, his voice taking on a formal tone that sent chills down my spine. Your mother and I have made a decision. We cannot continue to support your deliberate rejection of our family values. My mother opened a folder on her lap, removing what appeared to be a glossy brochure. We've consulted with Dr. Friedman again. He's prepared a comprehensive plan, rhinoplasty, chin recontouring, possibly liposuction, and a chemical peel series for your skin issues. I stared at her in disbelief. You want me to completely change my face? We want to help you reach your potential, she corrected, sliding the brochure across the desk. Dr. Friedman could schedule the first procedures next week. You'd have the summer to recover before MIT. If my father interjected, you still insist on attending MIT rather than Vassar. That's another discussion entirely. The room seemed to shrink around me as the full implications became clear. This wasn't just about yesterday's humiliation or my appearance. This was an ultimatum. And if I refuse? I asked, my voice barely audible. My father's expression hardened. Then we can no longer financially support you. No tuition, no living expenses, no family backing. You'd have to make your own way. My mother added, her tone suggesting this was an impossibility. And of course, you couldn't continue to live here representing the Bailey name while rejecting Bailey standards. You're disowning me over plastic surgery. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After all my academic achievements, my scholarships, my coding projects, none of that matters because I won't change my face. Don't be dramatic, Harper, my father scoffed. We're offering you a chance to improve yourself and continue being part of this family. The choice is yours. Something inside me, something that had been bending and compressing for years, finally snapped. I stood up, my legs shaking but my voice surprisingly steady. My face is not the problem. This family is the problem. You've made me feel worthless my entire life because I don't look like Madison. You've ignored my accomplishments and magnified my flaws. Yesterday, Madison publicly humiliated me by sharing unflattering photos labeled ugliest graduate, and neither of you said a word to her. You're not offering improvement. You're demanding conformity to your shallow, appearance-obsessed values. My mother gasped, but I continued, years of suppressed feelings pouring out. I accepted MIT's offer weeks ago. I'm going with or without your money, and I'd rather live in a cardboard box than spend another day trying to meet your impossible standards. How dare you speak to us that way, my father thundered, his face flushing with anger. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? I challenged. Criticized me? Compared me to Madison? Made me feel like I'm never good enough? That's not parenting. That's emotional abuse. The word abuse hung in the air like a thunderclap. My father's expression darkened dangerously. You have 2 weeks, he said, his voice cold and final. Either schedule the procedures with Dr. Friedman or find somewhere else to live. Your trust fund will be frozen until you comply. Madison, who had been unusually quiet during this exchange, finally spoke up. She keeps a diary, you know. Under her mattress. She's written some very interesting things about this family. My blood ran cold. My diary contained my most private thoughts, my pain, my anger, my plans for the future. And Madison had read it. You went through my things. I whispered, betrayed anew. She shrugged, a small smile playing at her lips. I was looking for a phone charger. It's not my fault you wrote such nasty things about Mom and Dad. And me. My mother stood abruptly. This conversation is over. We're leaving for the Hamptons this afternoon for the summer opening. Harper, you have 2 weeks to make your decision. I suggest you use the time wisely. They filed out of the study, leaving me alone with the plastic surgery brochure and the shattered remains of my family relationship. I returned to my room in a daze, pulling out my diary from its hiding place. Sure enough, several pages had been dog-eared, the entries where I'd vented my frustrations most bluntly. That afternoon, the house fell silent as my family departed for their Hamptons vacation, a traditional Bailey summer migration I would not be part of. Alone in the empty mansion, I began methodically packing my essentials. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, and coding books, the few sentimental items I couldn't bear to leave behind. Everything fit into 2 suitcases and a backpack, a shockingly small representation of 18 years of life. I withdrew the $237 in my personal savings account, all I had that wasn't controlled by my parents. I booked a bus ticket to Cambridge, leaving the following morning. Then I wrote a brief note. I choose myself. Don't contact me. I left it on my father's desk alongside the untouched plastic surgery brochure. The next morning, I took one final look at the house I'd grown up in, the manicured lawn, the elegant facade, the suffocating perfection. I felt no nostalgia. Only relief as I wheeled my suitcases down the driveway and walked to the bus station, stepping into an uncertain future entirely on my own. The transition from Wellesley privilege to Cambridge struggle was more brutal than I'd anticipated. The $237 in my pocket quickly dwindled as reality set in. Cambridge was expensive. MIT wouldn't start for months, and I had nowhere to live. My first week was spent in a dingy motel that charged by the day, eating ramen noodles and applying for every job I could find. By day 10, with less than $50 remaining, panic had become my constant companion. I'm sorry, but we need someone with experience, said the manager at the 4th coffee shop I'd applied to. I'm a fast learner, I pleaded. I can start immediately. She glanced at my resume again, her expression softening slightly. No food service experience, no retail. What did you do in high school? The truth, that I'd spent my time studying and coding while my classmates worked summer jobs, would sound privileged and entitled. Family responsibilities. I said vaguely. Look, I can put you on as a morning shift barista, she finally offered. 6 to noon, minimum wage plus tips. Training starts tomorrow. I nearly cried with relief. Thank you. I won't let you down. The coffee shop job barely covered my motel expenses, so I took a second job doing data entry at a small insurance office from 1 to 5 p.m. When that still wasn't enough, I added a third job cleaning office buildings from 9 p.m. to midnight. Working 18 hours a day left little time for sleep, much less planning for my future. 2 weeks before classes were scheduled to begin, I received an email that shattered my fragile stability. Dear Ms. Bailey, due to your failure to secure housing and complete financial arrangements, your enrollment at MIT has been deferred until spring semester. Please contact the admissions office to confirm your intentions. I sat on the edge of my motel bed, staring at my laptop screen through tears of exhaustion and despair. I had been so focused on basic survival that I'd missed critical deadlines for housing applications and financial aid paperwork. My partial scholarship remained intact, but without the remaining tuition payment and a place to live, I couldn't start in the fall. That night, I was forced to check out of the motel. I simply couldn't afford another week. With nowhere else to go, I found myself joining the invisible army of the temporarily homeless, washing up in public restrooms and spending nights in the 24-hour university library, pretending to be a summer student. Depression settled over me like a heavy blanket. My skin, which had actually begun to clear up away from the stress of my family, broke out worse than ever. I lost weight I couldn't afford to lose. My hair, unwashed for days at a time, became limp and dull. The irony wasn't lost on me. I looked worse now than I ever had at home, but for entirely different reasons. As Thanksgiving approached, a deep loneliness took hold. I hadn't spoken to my family since leaving Wellesley. Despite everything, some small, wounded part of me hoped they might reach out, that my absence might have made them reconsider their ultimatum. In a moment of weakness, I sent a carefully worded email to my mother. I hope you're well. I wanted to let you know that I've deferred my MIT admission until spring while I work full-time. I'm doing fine and making my own way. Happy Thanksgiving. No response came. A week later, I sent a brief message to my father. Dad, I know we left things in a bad place. I'm working hard and planning to start MIT in January. I hope we can talk sometime. The silence was deafening. Finally, 2 days before Christmas, I tried reaching out to Madison. I know we've had our differences, but it's Christmas. Could we talk? This time, my email bounced back. Undeliverable. Recipient unknown. Confused, I tried my parents' emails again. Both returned the same error message. They had changed their email addresses without telling me. Complete disconnection. With shaking hands, I wrote a physical letter to our Wellesley address, pouring my heart onto the page. I didn't ask for money or even forgiveness, just acknowledgement that I existed. A week later, my letter returned to the coffee shop address I'd included as a return address. Stamped across the envelope in red ink, returned to sender, and no longer at this address. They had moved. My family had physically relocated without telling me, leaving no forwarding address. The finality of it knocked the wind from my lungs. They hadn't just disowned me, they had erased me. The combination of physical exhaustion, emotional devastation, and poor living conditions finally caught up with me 2 days after Christmas. In the middle of my morning shift at the coffee shop, I collapsed, my body simply shutting down. I woke up in a hospital bed and 4 dripping fluids into my arm. A nurse named Janet was adjusting my pillows, her kind face creased with concern. "There you are," she said gently. "You gave everyone quite a scare, young lady. What happened?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "Severe dehydration, malnutrition, and exhaustion," she explained. "Your body just couldn't keep going. The doctor wants to keep you for observation at least overnight." Panic seized me. I can't afford this. I don't have insurance. I need to get back to work. Janet placed a calming hand on my arm. Your manager at the coffee shop called an ambulance when you collapsed. She also mentioned that you might be in a difficult situation. Shame burned through me. I'm fine. I'm a student, just working through some temporary issues. Janet's expression told me she didn't believe me, but she didn't push. The hospital has programs for people who need assistance. Let me bring you some forms. That night, alone in the sterile hospital room, I reached the lowest point of my life. I stared at my reflection in the darkened window. Gaunt face, hollow eyes, chapped lips. For the first time since leaving home, I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake. Maybe I should have accepted my mother's offer. Maybe a few surgical procedures would have been worth having a roof over my head, food in my stomach, and a clear path to education. Maybe my face really was the problem. I picked up my phone, my mother's number still memorized despite months of silence. My thumb hovered over the call button. One call and I could go home. One surrender, and this nightmare would end. No, I whispered to my reflection. This isn't about my face. It never was. I set the phone down and turned away from the window. I wouldn't call. I wouldn't break. Somehow, I would find a way forward on my own terms. Little did I know that rock bottom was exactly where my real life would begin. After 3 days in the hospital, I was discharged with strict instructions to rest and improve my nutrition. With nowhere to go, I faced the prospect of returning to my untenable living situation until Janet, the nurse who had cared for me, made an unexpected offer. My daughter's roommate just moved out of their apartment near Central Square, she said as she helped me gather my belongings. They're looking for someone to take the room. It's not fancy, but it's clean and affordable. I stared at her, suspicious of such convenient timing. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Janet's kind eyes crinkled at the corners. Because 20 years ago, I was you. Young, alone, struggling. Someone gave me a chance when I needed it most. I'm just paying it forward. 2 hours later, I was standing in a small but clean bedroom in a modest 2-bedroom apartment. My new roommate, Alicia Chen, was a computer engineering graduate student with an easy smile and zero interest in my appearance. Bathrooms shared, kitchen's a disaster zone but functional. And the Wi-Fi password is taped to the fridge, she said, completing her 30-second tour. Rent's due on the 1st. Any questions? Why aren't you asking me more questions? I couldn't help but ask. Don't you want references or something? Alicia shrugged. Janet vouched for you. Plus, you look like you've been through hell. So I'm guessing you're not going to throw wild parties. That's good enough for me. That night, sleeping in a real bed for the first time in weeks, I felt the first tentative stirrings of hope. The next morning, Alicia was typing furiously at the kitchen table, surrounded by empty coffee mugs and scattered papers. You code? She asked, noticing my interest in her screens. Yeah. Python, JavaScript, some C++. Her eyes lit up. For real? I'm drowning in this project for my startup incubator. The backend is a mess and our developer quit last week. Want to take a look? I peered at her screen, immediately spotting several inefficiencies in the code. Your loops are redundant here, and this function could be simplified. Holy shit, Alicia breathed. Can you fix it? Probably. She pushed her laptop toward me. If you can salvage this, I'll pay you. Not much, but something. I spent the day restructuring Alicia's code, losing myself in the familiar comfort of programming logic. By evening, I had transformed her unwieldy backend into something streamlined and functional. This is incredible, she said, reviewing my work. Where did you learn to code like this? Self-taught, mostly. I was supposed to start at MIT this fall, but I trailed off, not wanting to explain my whole sad story. MIT? Wait, have you published anything? Blog posts, tutorials, anything? I ran a coding blog called CodeGirlX for a few years, I admitted. Alicia's jaw dropped. Your CodeGirlX? Seriously? Your Python tutorials saved my ass freshman year. The validation from a complete stranger, someone who knew my work but not my face or my family name, felt like pure sunshine after months of darkness. Our startup needs someone with your skills, Alicia continued. It's just a small team working on an app for college students, but we have seed funding. It wouldn't be much at first, but I'll take it, I said immediately. The next few weeks brought rapid change. Alicia introduced me to her startup team, who cared more about my coding abilities than my appearance. I began working part-time while maintaining my coffee shop job for stability. In late January, I received an email from MIT's Financial Aid Office. Dear Ms. Bailey, we have reviewed your situation and are pleased to offer you an expanded aid package, including emergency housing assistance and a work-study position in the computer science department. Please contact us to complete the necessary paperwork for spring enrollment. It turned out that Dr. Reynolds, a professor who had interviewed me during the application process, had taken a personal interest in my case after learning I had deferred. His intervention had unlocked resources I didn't know existed. By February, I was officially an MIT student, living in subsidized housing, working part-time for Alicia's startup, and flourishing academically. My professors quickly recognized my abilities, and Dr. Reynolds became a mentor, guiding me through both academic challenges and life adjustments. You have extraordinary talent, Harper, he told me after I aced my first major project. But more importantly, you have extraordinary resilience. Spring bloomed into summer, and I secured an internship at a small tech company that paid enough for me to quit the coffee shop. For the first time in my life, I was completely self-sufficient, making my own decisions, following my own path, answering to no one but myself. One evening in late August, as Alicia and I shared takeout Chinese food in our apartment, she made an observation that startled me. Your skin has really cleared up, she said casually, reaching for another egg roll. Not that it matters, but you look healthier. I touched my cheek reflexively. She was right. Months of reduced stress, regular meals, and adequate sleep had transformed my complexion. The severe acne that had been a source of family shame had faded to occasional minor breakouts. I hadn't really noticed, I admitted. Alicia shrugged. Like I said, doesn't matter. But it's interesting how much of that stuff is connected to stress and mental health, you know? My mom's a dermatologist, and she always says the worst thing for skin is a toxic environment. Her words hit me like a revelation. How much of my appearance had been a reflection of the toxicity I'd lived with? How much of my so-called ugliness had been manifested by the very people who claimed to want to fix it? That night, I studied my reflection, really studied it for the first time in years. The face looking back at me wasn't ugly. It wasn't Madison's face, with its conventional beauty and perfect symmetry. It was just mine. Unique. Distinctive. Actually kind of interesting. The following week, a major breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. Dr. Reynolds called me into his office after class. Harper, I've been following your work on skin condition tracking algorithms, he said, referencing a side project I'd mentioned once in passing. I think there's significant potential there. Would you be interested in developing it further as part of your independent study? My skin condition tracking app had started as a personal project, a way to document my own skin issues and identify triggers. I'd coded it during my darkest days as a form of reclaiming control over something that had been used against me. You think it has commercial potential? I asked, surprised. More than potential. It's innovative and fills a genuine need. If you're willing, I'd like to connect you with some people from the Entrepreneurship Center. Within months, my personal project evolved into NaturalU, an app that used AI to track skin conditions, identify triggers, and suggest personalized care routines. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very feature that had made me an outcast in my family was becoming the foundation of my professional success. By the end of my sophomore year, NaturalU had secured its first round of seed funding. By junior year, we had a team of 5 and office space in Kendall Square. My appearance, once deemed my greatest liability, had become irrelevant to my day-to-day life. People saw my work, my intelligence, my creativity. They didn't fixate on my skin or my nose or my weight. I developed friendships with people who valued substance over style, depth over superficiality. I even started dating Thomas, a mechanical engineering student who found my mind more attractive than my gradually improving appearance. "I like your face," he told me once, running a finger gently along my cheek. "It's interesting. It tells a story." No one had ever described my face that way before. Flawed, yes. Problematic, certainly. But interesting? A story worth telling? Never. As NaturalU grew from startup to legitimate business, I found myself increasingly in the public eye, giving presentations, meeting with investors, even doing occasional media interviews. The shy, insecure girl who had once hidden from cameras was slowly replaced by a confident young woman who understood her value beyond physical appearance. I won't pretend the transformation was easy or complete. I still had moments of insecurity, days when old voices echoed in my head. But with each success, each new relationship, each day lived on my own terms, those voices grew fainter. By the time I graduated from MIT at the top of my class, NaturalU had over 50 employees and a valuation that made me financially independent beyond anything I could have imagined. I bought my first apartment, a modest but beautiful space overlooking the Charles River, and furnished it exactly as I pleased, with no mother to critique my taste or father to question my choices. As I approached my 10-year high school reunion, I had become someone my 18-year-old self wouldn't have recognized, not because of any change in my appearance, but because of the confidence, success, and self-acceptance I'd cultivated. Then came the email that would bring my past and present into direct collision, an invitation to the Wellesley High 10-year reunion. Followed a day later by a message from a sender I had never expected to hear from again, Madison Bailey. "Harper, I know it's been a long time. I've been trying to find you. We need to talk. Things have changed. Please." The circle was about to close, and I was finally ready to face it. 10 years. A decade since I'd walked away from the Bailey mansion with nothing but 2 suitcases and unwavering determination. Now, as I stood in my penthouse apartment overlooking the Boston skyline, the reunion invitation and Madison's email open on my laptop, I felt oddly calm. NaturalU had grown beyond my wildest expectations, recently valued at over $50 million. Our app had expanded into a comprehensive platform supporting people with various skin conditions, and we'd just launched a foundation providing dermatological care to underserved communities. The girl who had once been mocked for her appearance was now helping thousands embrace their natural beauty. "Are you really considering going?" Thomas asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. After 3 years together, he knew my family history in detail. "I think I need to," I replied, leaning back against his solid presence. "Not for them, but for me, to close this chapter completely." I replied to Madison's email with a simple message: "I'll be at the reunion. We can talk there." The weeks leading up to the reunion passed in a blur of preparations. Not the kind my mother would have insisted upon: no crash diets, painful treatments, or cosmetic procedures. Instead, I focused on my mental preparation, working with my therapist to establish healthy boundaries for the inevitable confrontation. I chose my outfit with care, not to impress, but to remind myself of how far I'd come. A custom-designed dress in deep emerald that complemented my natural features, comfortable yet elegant shoes, and my grandmother's simple pearl necklace, the one possession from my previous life that held positive memories. Thomas offered to accompany me, but this was a journey I needed to complete alone. "I'll be fine," I assured him, kissing him goodbye at the airport. "The Bailey family can't hurt me anymore." Returning to Wellesley felt like visiting a movie set from a film I'd watched long ago, familiar yet strangely two-dimensional. I checked into the Wellesley Grand Hotel, amused by the irony of staying as a paying guest in the very establishment where my parents had once been regulars at charity galas. The morning of the reunion, a text arrived from Madison. "Can we meet before tonight? Coffee at Rosewood Cafe at 2. I arrived at the cafe precisely at 2, spotting Madison immediately at a corner table. The years had changed her too. The flawless beauty queen had been replaced by a thin, anxious-looking woman with premature lines around her eyes. "Harper," she said, standing awkwardly as I approached. You look great." "Thank you," I replied simply, sitting across from her. "You wanted to talk." Madison twisted her napkin nervously. "I've been trying to find you for almost 2 years. You're not easy to track down." "I changed my name legally after MIT," I explained. "Harper Wilson. My mentor's surname." She nodded. "I saw you in Forbes, the 30 under 30-foot feature. I almost didn't recognize you, but then I read about your app and your story. Not the family part, but about MIT and your journey." "What do you want, Madison?" She took a deep breath. "To apologize. What I did to you. The photos at graduation, reading your diary, all of it, it was cruel and inexcusable." I studied her face, searching for the manipulative sister I'd known. Instead, I saw something unexpected. Genuine remorse. "What happened after I left?" I asked. "Everything fell apart," she said quietly. "Dad's firm imploded after a scandal. One of his partners was embezzling and Dad knew about it. Mom had a breakdown when their social standing collapsed. They lost almost everything, including the house. I absorbed this information without the satisfaction I might once have expected." "And you?" "I married Bradley Henderson right after college. Brooke's brother, remember him? It was a disaster. Divorced after 2 years." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out being pretty wasn't enough to sustain a marriage or a career. I'm working in real estate now, barely making ends meet." "I'm sorry things have been difficult," I said, surprising myself with my sincerity. "Mom and Dad are coming to the reunion tonight," Madison continued. "They know you might be there. Dad, he wants to talk to you about an investment opportunity." Of course he did. Something's never changed. "And what do you want, Madison?" Her eyes filled with tears. "A sister. I know I don't deserve one after how I treated you, but seeing what you've built, who you've become. I'm proud of you, Harper. And I miss you." I didn't offer forgiveness in that cafe. It was too soon, the wounds still tender despite the years. But I did offer possibility. "Let's see how tonight goes." The Wellesley High School gymnasium had been transformed for the reunion, though no amount of twinkling lights could fully disguise its essential nature. I entered alone, immediately aware of the ripple of recognition that spread through the crowd. Brooke Henderson spotted me first, her eyes widening as she elbowed her friend Cassandra. Their shocked expressions were worth every moment of hardship I'd endured. "Harper Bailey." Principal Whitman approached, beaming. "Our most successful alumna. We've been hoping you'd attend." Throughout the evening, former classmates who had never given me a second glance now clamored for my attention, asking for business cards and mentioning their great app ideas. I was polite but reserved, finding genuine pleasure only in reconnecting with Mr. Wilson, now retiring after 30 years of teaching. "I always knew you were destined for greatness," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Though I admit, even I didn't anticipate this level of success." "I used your name," I told him. "Legally, I mean. I'm Harper Wilson now." His eyes filled with tears. I can think of no greater honor. The confrontation I'd been anticipating came near the end of the evening. I was chatting with Mr. Wilson when I felt a familiar presence behind me. Turning, I faced my parents for the first time in a decade. My mother had aged dramatically, her once perfect features now heavily lined despite obvious attempts at cosmetic intervention. My father's commanding presence had diminished, his shoulders slightly stooped, his designer suit a little too loose. "Harper," he said, extending his hand as if we were business acquaintances. "You're looking well." Thank you, I replied, shaking his hand briefly. It's been a long time. We've been following your success, my mother added, her smile tight. The app. The Forbes feature. Very impressive. Yes, about that, my father continued smoothly. I've recently established a new law practice focusing on intellectual property and tech startups. I believe my expertise could be valuable to your company. Perhaps we could discuss a potential collaboration. 10 years ago, his dismissal had shattered my world. Now, his transparent attempt to capitalize on my success barely registered as an emotional blip. I have excellent legal representation, but thank you for the offer, I replied calmly. Of course, he backpedaled quickly. But his family. We're not family, I interrupted, my voice gentle but firm. You made that decision 10 years ago when you gave me an ultimatum about my appearance. You chose superficial beauty over your daughter's well-being. That was your choice. And I've made peace with it. My mother's face crumpled. Harper, we were only trying to help you. We wanted you to have every advantage. No. You wanted me to fit your image of what a Bailey should be. But it turns out I needed to stop being a Bailey to become who I was meant to be. You've certainly improved your appearance. My mother noted, unable to help herself. Your skin has cleared beautifully, and you've lost weight. The hair is much better too. I smiled, recognizing the backhanded compliment for what it was, the last desperate attempt to maintain her worldview. My appearance hasn't improved, Mom. I've simply stopped allowing others to convince me it was a problem. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to see Madison. Mom, Dad, I think we should go, she said quietly. Harper has other people to catch up with. As they turned to leave, I called out, Madison. She looked back hopefully. Coffee next week? Same place. Her smile was genuine. I'd like that. Watching them walk away, I felt no triumph, no vindication, only liberation. The family that had once defined me through their rejection no longer held any power over my self-worth. Later that night, back in my hotel room, I video called Thomas to share the events of the evening. So that's it? Chapter closed, he asked. I considered the question. Not closed, exactly. Rewritten. I'm open to having some kind of relationship with Madison. She seems genuinely changed. As for my parents, I can be civil, but there are boundaries I won't compromise on. I'm proud of you, he said simply. 2 days later, I delivered the keynote address at a girls' tech conference in Boston. Looking out at the sea of young, eager faces, girls who would face their own challenges and pressures around appearance and worth, I shared my story publicly for the first time. Your value isn't determined by your appearance, I told them. Not by your skin or your weight or your features. Your worth lies in your mind, your heart, your resilience, and your unique contributions to this world. It took me losing everything to discover that truth. My hope is that you can learn it without the same painful journey. My story doesn't have a fairy tale ending where family wounds are magically healed. My relationship with Madison is slowly rebuilding, one careful conversation at a time. My parents remain on the periphery, our interactions limited and conditional. But that's okay. The happy ending isn't about them. It's about me and the life I've created on my own terms. 10 years ago, they called me the ugly high school graduate and disowned me for refusing to change my appearance. Today, I know that what they saw as my greatest flaw became the foundation of my greatest strength, the ability to see beyond the surface and value what truly matters. What about you? Have you ever had to choose between meeting others' expectations and being true to yourself? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and like this video so others can find it too. Remember, sometimes the most beautiful journeys begin when someone tells you you're not beautiful enough. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the next video.